What's the one single thing that you think would have the greatest impact on helping our environment?
Okay, very straightforward. What's the one single thing that would have a greatest impact on the environment? Well, we're asking the panel first. You are a member of the audience, I'm afraid. Anne.
Oh goodness. Well, I think actually we've got to find alternatives by BMW Mini in the kind of triangle area around Witney and Berkshire. There are 50 Mini cars which have been brought over from I think they were made in Japan or somewhere like that, and they are being used by families and by individuals to see how I've actually driven one, and it's really exciting, but it's a very peculiar experience because it's totally silent. The other exciting development is with Honda, who are developing a hydrogen engine in Japan, and the fuel cell technology for that. There are only 4 factories in the world developing this fuel cell technology, and one is in Swindon. And recently, a couple of months ago, the government put £700,000 into it to help it expand and develop this technology. We've also announced the low-carbon corridor between London and Swansea, which goes through Swindon and then up the M5, where we're looking for fuelling points and really developing along those corridors the means by which people can travel about in these different types of engine. And Johnson Matthey, who developed the fuel cells, have got a 13-acre site in West Swindon, which they're only using 4 acres of at the moment. So this is really where we're going to get our green jobs for the future. And it will expand. It's got planning permission to expand for that whole site. It's exciting technology. It is happening here in Swindon. Honda has a commitment to Swindon, and what we need is the Japanese arm of Honda to decide that they will build these new engines in Swindon, and we will be made as a car town for the 21st century, getting rid of the combustion engine. So I think that will be a really huge change, which will really enable Swindon to carry on developing, but it will be with green jobs.
David.
I suppose leadership and determination would be the simplistic way of looking at it. The leadership and the determination to make sure that the legislation, the policies, and the encouragement are put in place. I mean, I like the sound of the Honda stuff, and I've heard about that when I was there as well. But without leadership, without drive, without the determination to push them through, all the good ideas in the world won't happen.
So there's no one particular thing that we do?
No. I mean, we've got a whole raft of policies that it really, you haven't got time.
Okay.
I'd like to say.
Robert.
One particular thing. Go out and buy a smart meter, not just for you, but for all your family and friends, and get them to put it on the price per watt. Because that is one of the best ways I've ever seen people start switching things off in their house. Because suddenly you see the price absolutely dive when you turn off your overhead lights, when you turn off your electrical appliances, suddenly you can see the change. And you can save money doing that. More globally, I think we need a smart electricity grid in this country, doing a similar thing, but nationally. I picked up a point from a member of the audience about the need to reduce energy use.
Sorry to interrupt. Whose phone is that? Where is it? I'm sorry, it's very distracting. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Elspeth, I'll go back to.
Yeah.
I was saying, individually, smart meters, very, very good way to get people to save money. And by saving money, they're saving consumption. Nationally, a smart electricity grid, doing the sort of clever things with electricity supply that means we're not wasting it. And when it comes to industry and large consumers of energy, they're already doing it, lots of the sensible ones, but more consumers of energy need to be smart with their use of electricity and other forms of energy by making sure that when nobody is in the room, the electricity is off, and when in effect recycling their energy so that they are not having this constant peak and dive, which actually costs them a huge amount of overhead when it comes to their business. So let's get smart on using energy.
Robin, one thing.
I think probably one of the greatest things that's helped with environmental initiatives would be just the internet, which has done away with the need for people to travel. There is some controversy over the amount of energy that certain service consuming. But I'm sure, there is work being done on that to get the efficiency up.
Okay, and Jenny, one thing.
2 words, annual targets. I mentioned it in my opening speech, and I think it was slightly misunderstood when I said if we have targets for 30 years to 2030 or 2050, then we won't be around. I didn't mean we wouldn't be alive, I mean that we won't be responsible, and you can pass the buck on to someone else. I think we need local, we need annual targets, and they need to be locally controlled. We need to move to localisation, and in order to do that, these local targets need to be democratically accountable, and I think that's where we'll get it through, because obviously everybody in this room cares about this issue greatly, and if you go to any town or city in England, you find exactly the same thing. And if you have the targets from above, and you have the people in this room that will hold people accountable to make sure those targets are fulfilled, I think that's how we'll progress, and that's how we'll move on.
Brilliant. Comments, ideas from the audience, Lady in Green?
Well, I'd just like to say something, listening to you, Robert, at the beginning and what you just said, I get the strong impression that the Tories are going to leave it to the individuals to save the world, and not, you don't have a bigger policy in a sense. And that frightens me, because individually us turning off lights is not going to save the world. I think it's got to be a much bigger commitment, and I don't see that coming from the Tories.
Well, I'm very sorry, I disagree with you. It's up to all of us to do something about it. I'm not ignoring the fact that government...
I'm not saying that, but I don't see the commitment coming from the Tories as well. The bigger picture.
I'm sorry you don't see that, because everything in what David Cameron has said and what he intends to do is it shows a deep commitment to improving our environment and to conserving it for the future. I'm sorry you don't see it in that way, but it is there. This is why I said in my speech, you look internationally, you look nationally, and you look locally and individually. It's all those things coming together to make the world a more sustainable place, and that's what we're committed to.
Did you want to come in very quickly? Yeah.
What was the question? You said
one thing.
One single thing. Well, I think technology will, basically. There's a professor in America who is doing an awful lot of work on splitting water into oxygen and hydrogen, which is one way, because he creates a thermal process where when you put more heat in it, it keeps converting more and more, so you can then use waste heat. It produces that, which you can then recombine the water and oxygen, you get more heat out. The other thing is by using those sorts of houses that are in Swansea. They have heat pumps, they have solar panels on the roof, they're recycled. And the other thing, I mentioned the combustion engine. It's the internal combustion engine. When cars came out, there were more steam cars than anything else, and they're external. There's a company that has produced an internal combustion engine. You heat it up, it produces mechanical energy.
You've managed to get in 3 things now. So,
that's what I mean. Technology will help it. I doubt if people will. They'll still be using as much energy in 10 years.
Can I ask Anne where she thinks the energy is coming from to drive the electric cars?
Well, I think
that comes from the power stations
but of course,
that's causing the CO2.
Yeah, so, well, hang on a minute, let me ask.
I don't work that one out, I'm sorry.
It's using hugely less power and energy than the combustion engine. Yeah, it is. And it runs on a tiny amount of fuel and electricity when you recharge it. So I understand what the point you're making, but if we generate our electricity from renewables, they don't produce any emissions at all, the electric cars. So I think, you have to say, if we can get some energy, we're not going to be creating no energy at all. We are going to be creating some, and that will come from renewables and from other sources, not from coal-fired, not from gas-fired, but from renewables and nuclear, as I said earlier. So that should help.
But if you've got everybody switching their cars onto electric, say at night, I mean the demand is going to be colossal. Well, you'll probably double the amount that we use.
It is actually...
There's millions of cars all going to be plugged on at night.
No. I think the issue here is that it's using a tiny amount of power.
Sorry, if we can have one at a time.
It's using a tiny amount of power. It's not the only example, as I said, the hydrogen car is coming along as well. And we'll have to see which is the best and which people like and what they're going to go for. But we are not, I mean, I think we're fooling ourselves if we think we're going to get people out of their cars and not using a car at all. You know, the ordinary people of this town are not going to give up their cars easily. We have to find alternatives to that, and we have to have, of course, a mix of transport, including the forms of transport we talked about earlier, but people will not give up their cars easily. So that technology needs to change, the technology that powers the car.